Coming in at number 10, we have the Facebook Ghost. The first demon we have on this list was birthed out of a creepy Reddit thread that has created one of the best urban legends on the internet. If you haven't heard of this, it's a great story. There's a guy whose girlfriend recently passed away, and something very strange starts happening. He starts getting messages from his girlfriend through Facebook Messenger, and at first he thinks this is a prank, that someone could have hacked into her account and is harassing him. Then the messages start to get really creepy. They start to talk about how his deceased girlfriend is very cold, and then he starts to get pictures sent to him that were taken just outside his window. Now this is just an urban legend, right? Well, some people on the internet have claimed similar things have happened to them. Now this could just be all people adding to the urban legend, but some people speculate that this is some sort of technologically savvy demon that will try to get close to you through social media. And the more you believe in it and the more you're afraid of it, the stronger it gets until it's close enough to take your life. Now I can't even check my messages without being afraid. Coming in at number 9, we have Momo, the new age chainmail that had people freaked out for a multitude of reasons. This scared the hell out of everyone in the world for a little bit. The Momo trend made international news as people were afraid that their children's lives were at risk. If you don't remember, Momo was usually a terrifying image of the famous Japanese sculpture that would be sent to younger people through the messaging service WhatsApp. The messages would instruct people to harm themselves until eventually this led to them taking their own lives. This was traced back to an internet prank, and there haven't been any deaths connected to this chain letter, but the internet loves to speculate, and I am here to give you these speculations. I've read that similar to our last point, Momo is actually a dark entity, and it will use the messaging service to try and get close to you so it can learn about you and use your personal information against you. Coming in at number 8, we have Agarez. I have talked about this demon before, and honestly, I put him on any list that involves demons because I think this dude is one of the funniest creations I have ever heard of. Agarez is a demon from Christian and Hebrew mythology. Basically, this demon can take any form it wants. If it wants to be a woman, it will normally show up as a super hot chick who you can't take your eyes off of, and if Agarez shows up as a dude, he will be an old man riding a crocodile. So either way, when this creature's around, you are not going to miss him. He will then try to become your friend and offer to teach you how to speak in every language in the world. That is a good chunk of knowledge that you should not pass up, but he will only tell you how to say the most foul things in every language, and this usually leads to people being outcasted from their society for being horrible, hateful people. But I just think it's so funny that an old man rides up to a stranger while he's on a crocodile, then teaches you a bunch of racial slurs, and then just moves on. That's hilarious. Coming in at number 7, we have Hellboy, the hulking red demon from another world who deep down just wants to be loved. Well, deep down he might want to bring the end of all civilization, but that's a question for the comic book writers to work out. Now, Hellboy might not be the nicest comic book demon all the time, but there have definitely been some moments where he has been sweet and cuddly and just wants to have the people around him like him. Like when he saves the cat from being eaten by a troll. The dude loves little kitties, and he is constantly looking for love in all the wrong places, and he does have one really good friend who's like a fish monster thing. I'm sure if this guy was allowed to walk out in the open, he would be making friends left, right, and center. Coming in at number 6, we have Dracula. Okay, is Dracula a demon? I think we could debate this topic all day, and really it would just be semantics, so let's break down what qualifies to be a demon. They're evil, they're usually immortal, and they will drain some sort of life force from you, and they usually have something supernatural going on. Now, Dracula checks all of these boxes, so I think he fits perfectly on this list. Now, when has he ever tried to make someone become his friend? Well, if you go back through a lot of the old stories of Dracula, he's doing this all the time. He's inviting people back to his big old mansion to have dinner and hang out when he really just wants to suck your blood. When he invites you over for dinner, he's really just pranking you. You're the dinner, lol. He also tries to befriend women a lot. How many Brides of Dracula movies have we seen in the past? He's always looking for a lady who can become the one he will love forever, and he can have undead children with. So if you're a lady, look out for pale dudes with sharp teeth who have big houses. I know it sounds appealing, but they might be trying to kill you. Coming in at number 5, we have Pennywise. I mean, all we have to do is look at the opening of the movie It to see how Pennywise has a very simple game plan. Make you think that he's your friend so he can bite bite your arm off and drag you into the sewers. That's basically what he does to Georgie at the beginning of the movie. Talks to Georgie, makes him feel kind of comfortable, and then blam, he's snacking on his arm like that one girl who made that snacking TikTok that everyone hated but people kept sharing because people hated it. There's also the part where he makes himself look like an old lady, so the adult version of that redhead girl that I can't remember the name of comes to the house, and then he can scare the crap out of her. He's also a shapeshifter, and that is basically their MO. Shapeshifters will always want to make you feel comfortable before they reveal their true form. It is a classic trick. Coming in at number 4, we have a succubus. Of course, this one is a classic. I gotta say, this is a little bit of a gray area when it comes to friendship. So a succubus is a demon that will often take a human form so it can get close to you and then will have sex with you so it can suck your life force out through a sexual act. Now, a succubus is going to try to get close to you. Obviously, they are going to try to gain a certain amount of trust. Usually trust a person to a certain extent if you let them see you naked. Do you have to be naked to have sex? No, but that's a whole other thing. We're not gonna talk about that. Now, here's the thing. Do you have to befriend someone to have sex with them? Well, that's a personal preference. If you are that kind of person, then a succubus will for sure try to be your pal to get into your pants to steal your life force. Do you think a succubus would use Hinge? I should put no demons in my dating profile. Coming in at number 3, we have Ganon. Of course, this guy's on the list. This guy is the creepiest demon pretending to be your friend of all time. I mean, just look at what happens in the Ocarina of Time. The dude comes to Hyrule Castle acting all suave and stuff with his red hair and his cool armor. Then him and the king become good friends. He then uses this new friendship with the king to trick Link and then becomes the evil ruler of Hyrule as Link is stuck in stasis. And this is all before we even know that he's not even a dude, that he's been a demon pig thing that can use magic and wants to ruin everyone's day this whole time. He just wants to steal the Triforce. I would have put this guy at number 1, but I don't think everyone has played Zelda, so I thought 3 was a good spot for him. Coming in at number 2, we have Raikou, probably one of the most powerful creatures in anime, and that is really saying something. Raikou will for sure try and become your friend. He is one of the main characters from the Death Note series, and if you haven't seen it yet, you should definitely go watch it because it's some of the best anime around. But the show starts off with him getting bored of his regular life. The life of a powerful demon can get boring sometimes, I suppose, so he decides that he will meddle with the lives of humans and he befriends a human. He does this by leaving a book behind for his human friend to find. From there, this little human friend finds out that any name he writes in the book will lead to the death of that person. This is a very powerful tool. Now, why does Raikou do this? Well, by befriending this person and giving him this all-powerful tool of destruction, he can give himself a little entertainment. Coming in at number 1, we have Lucifer. I mean, of course, this guy has to be number 1 on the list. This is like his main thing that he does all the time. He will pretend to be someone he's not. He'll usually offer you some sort of help with something you got going on, and it's always a monkey's paw type situation. He will grant you a wish, but it will have some horrible consequence. This guy is the king of being a fake friend, and I think he loves it. I mean, some say it was Lucifer who was the snake that tempted Eve. Can you be a bigger fake friend than that? He was all like, eat the apple, it'll be fine, it's totally good, you're gonna look so skinny after you eat it, and I promise you, God won't care at all, just do it, all the cool kids are doing it. And then next thing you know, you're kicked out of the Garden of Eden, and you have to feel pain and suffering for the first time ever. I mean, maybe this is just an analogy for being born, like the womb is paradise, and you come out into the world, but that's a discussion for another list.
Starting us off at number 10 is Orobas, or Orobus. This devilish boy was first mentioned in Pseudo-Monarchia Daemonum. This text that mentions him is a section of text from a treatise on witchcraft that Johann Weir wrote that lists names and different descriptions of demons. It describes Orobas as a great prince, which sounds good so far, right? Well, listen to this. He comes forth like a horse, but when he puts man's idol on him, he talks of divine virtue. He gives true answers of things present, past, and to come, and of the divine and of the creation. He deceives none, nor suffers any to be tempted. He gives dignities and prelacies and the favor of friends and foes, and has rule over 20 legions. Like, listen to that. Divine virtue, true answers, etc. And he rolls up not on a horse, but like a horse. That one's on the nice list for me. On to number 9, Abaddon. This Judeo-Christian demon, Abaddon, was thought to just be a place to a bunch of people. But there were snippets in text that gave thought to Abaddon being a person or being, though some say an angel. But demon. So Abaddon is the chief of demons of the 7th hierarchy. and the king of the grasshoppers or demon locusts. Then in Mather's Key of Solomon, Moses uses the name Abaddon to summon a heavy rain. If you aren't familiar with Moses, he's the guy that parted the Red Sea and freed the Hebrews from Egypt, during which one of the plagues was locusts. And who is the king of demon locusts? Abaddon. And when it comes to Moses, do you really think he'd be asking for help from a bad demon? Huh? What do you think about that? Let's move on to number 8. Torngasuk or Torngasuk. Now, one thing about our bud Colin Duplancy is that he listed some beings as demons that weren't demons in other people's books. Torngasuk is just one example. In the Dictionary Infernal, Torngasuk is said to be a mischievous demon or spirit worshipped by offering in Greenland and the northeastern regions of Canada. But you know who lives in those areas? The Inuit people. And guess what? To them, he's an important sky god. Torngasuk is described as a bear, a tall one-armed man and half seal creature, or a tiny figure. And what he does is help out medicine men and fishermen when people fall ill, so definitely good in my books. Now on to number 7. Flaga, or Flaga. Flaga? It's from a really old book, so who knows? Now, this one is only mentioned in Dictionary Infernal, but Flaga honestly looks dope. And sure, Flaga is described as a malicious fairy, but come on. Look at this demon, swooping in, riding an eagle like a badass, and oh, an eagle, you know what those represent, right? Freedom and courage. Those things seem pretty good to me. On top of that, some people say that Flaga is nothing more than a magician that rides an eagle according to the Dictionary Infernal, which, way to be the cool guy at the party, right? Just swooping in on your bird, little magic trick. Eh? That's a party demon right there, haha! But anyways, number 6 and number 5 are Pain and Panic from Hercules, and yeah, I said it, they're good demons. Good shape-shifting demons. In case you forget which is which, Pain is the thick pink boy and Panic is the one that looks like a green bean. And let's look at the facts. They were assigned to kill a baby, but they couldn't do it. You may argue that this is due to incompetence, but let's look further into this. They fail again and again to cause any serious damage to befall Hercules. What I'm arguing is this is because they were doing all they could to help him. What better way to help a hero than from the antagonist's side? Hampering Hades' plans by messing them up, but still remaining as helpers because they could argue that it was just a silly mistake. Oh, and another reason they're good? They copped some of Herc's merch when it dropped. We know what team they're cheering for and they blatantly show it with what they're wearing and like drinking and on their shoes. Pain and Panic are actually good, that's what I'm saying. But let's go on to the next. Number 4, Malcolm. Sounds like Malcolm, but it's M-E-L-C-H-O-M. See, the reason this demon is good is because what his job is, or at least what it's described as. In Dictionary Infernal, Malcolm's job in hell is to carry the purse. He's the paymaster of civil servants in hell. So he's the money behind the government officials there, and he's just doing his job, man. Like, don't we just want to be seen as good people as we do our jobs? Tons of people here idolize the people with money, the people with the purse here on Earth, right? People see that as something to strive for, so if this guy isn't good, what does that mean for what we idolize? You know? I'll leave you with that. On to number 3, Garuda. See, now here's another demon from the Dictionary Infernal, but this time, this one is like just a chill being. Like, sure, Garuda ate a bunch of people, but he spit them back out. They didn't die. And plus, he's really only listed as a demon in the Dictionary Infernal. In descriptions in Hindu literature, he's Vishnu's loyal steed after Vishnu Hari, which is Vishnu's human form, allows Garuda to snack on his arm. Hari's arm was totally fine though, not a scratch, because Vishnu's a deity, man. Like, I guess if I was a deity too, I'd give an arm and a leg to get a steed. Not too bad, right? Anyways, on to number 2, Azazel. Okay, so according to the Book of Enoch, Azazel is a fallen angel. Now, the reason why is because he sympathized with Satan. I don't know about you, but sympathy is a good trait to have. You put yourself in someone else's shoes and learn a thing or two by listening to their side. But no, now Azazel is demonized. He's drawn with red skin, yellow eyes, and a barbed tail. And apparently he used to be handsome as an angel, but when he questioned God's intention with humans, like the fallen angel Lucifer, God just cast him down. And he was like, why should God create a human being who will shed blood and confusion while the angels prostrate before him and sing his glory day and night? And God, well, he didn't like that question, so yeah, Azazel was being a little selfish, but he just didn't want to refuse to bow down to the new creations. And when kids get new siblings, sometimes they aren't too happy, so just give them some time to warm up before you send them as a plague to humanity. Not that I'm questioning God, just like, I think Azazel's pretty chill. Number 2. So let's move on to our top 1, Lilith. Feminist icon, a demon queen, Lilith. And you know what? She gets a bad rap. She is a bad demon. The original wife of Adam, as mentioned in the book of Isaiah, by the way. But from the start, she's described as unclean, devilish, and dangerous. But you know what? She wanted to be seen as equal with Adam, and then, whoa, oh no, we can't have that. That's not how it should be. Please. That's just how society's structures were written in old literature to perpetuate the idea of female subordination. Check it. And then, so Adam is like, oh, my wife left me. So God sent angels who said, hear this, go back to Adam or we'll drown you. Like, does that sound very angelic to you? That's what I'm saying. So then after that, Lilith is replaced with Eve, who is made from Adam's rib. When originally Lilith and Adam were created equal. They were both their own beings. Like, that's all she wanted. Like, yes, I'm kind of heated that people think Lilith is bad. She was just an independent woman who didn't need no man.
At number 10, we have the hooded figure. Okay, so we're gonna kick off this list with a classic. I think whenever you see a hooded figure, whether it's in your sleep paralysis or when you're walking down the street, it's always terrifying. You have no idea what's under the hood. They could pull it up and reveal a disgusting face full of maggots, or it could just be some regular lady who really likes hoods at the worst time. But this encounter with the hooded being comes from Redditor Curly Bacon, and he said he would wake up in his room unable to move, and a tall entity shrouded in black would be posted up in the corner of his room. Every time he saw this thing, he could not see its face because it was covered by the classic dark cloak, but he could feel that it was looking at him, and he also felt that this thing was evil. I mean, that makes sense. If you're a good guy, you don't appear in people's rooms at night and then stare at them while they're petrified. You're too busy teaching blind kids how to read. At number 9, we have red eyes. Alright guys, this one comes from Reddit user Black Feathers. Now he says that this happened to him while he was living in his dead grandfather's home. One day, he went to take a nice little afternoon cat nap with some music on, and before he knew it, he was stuck in sleep paralysis and the music started to twist into crying voices. Then the closet he was facing started to open up, and what was in it? Well, a new Equinox home gym complete with workout gear. Just kidding, it was a shadowy figure with glowing red eyes, and it started to whisper the word hell. He then woke up and ran out of his house. At number 8, we have the Gremlin. We have another one from the Reddit user Curly Bacon. I feel so sorry for this dude. Like, I love sleeping. It's one of my top 5 favorite things. It's up there with like eating, YouTube fight videos, memes, and when dogs have their ears flipped on the inside out. Oh, it's so cute. I love it so much. But when Curly Bacon over here falls asleep, he's like, wow, I wonder which one of my sleep paralysis demons is going to come visit me tonight. I'm so popular. And the Gremlin sounds horrible. He says he will see this thing in the corner of his rooms, and it'll even sometimes be on the ceiling. Oh great, it's athletic. And it will always be whispering to itself in some weird language. On the most uncomfortable occasion, he said that he woke up in sleep paralysis and the Gremlin crawled over to his back and then stuck its long snake-like tongue into his ear. A demonic wet willy. Ugh. At number 7, we have black creatures. Dark floating creatures, things wearing black hoods, ghostly black creatures. I think there's definitely a theme here. I wonder if you just got a nice little nightlight to brighten up your room, then all your sleep paralysis problems would go away. Like the figures would just look way more cheerful. It would either be that or they would actually see their demonic faces and would be 10 times more terrifying. Well, this guy would have encounters with a black creature in his room, and he said it would shapeshift. It would sometimes take the form of people he knew. He felt like it was in a way to trick him. Once he said it took the form of his brother on the other side of his door and was trying to ask him for help. He knew it wasn't his actual brother because his brother didn't live with him. Ha, you gotta get a little smarter, demon. At number 6, we have the Cuddler. Now, even though I've given this one a nice cute name, it's not the kind of cuddling you want. This one was written by Reddit user Bumpstart Broomstick, and he talked about when he would get sleep paralysis, he would be visited by a figure that he couldn't see, but he could feel it climb into bed with him and then start cuddling him. This thing felt like it had bony arms of a skeleton and would get so close to him that he could feel it breathing on his neck. I bet if you changed those bony arms for nice squishy skin covered ones, then this wouldn't be that bad. I could use a surprise cuddle every now and again. But the worst part is that when this bony creature leaned in close to him and he could feel it breathing on him, it whispered, "Not yet. You're not ready yet." What the hell does that even mean? At number 5, we have Justin Bieber. Why not? Why not? Put Justin Bieber on the list. Oh, what? We got Justin Bieber sneaking into your room in a sleep state and ruining your life. I'm pretty sure you could sue him for that and make a killing. Well, this was written by a huge Justin Bieber fan named Dee Jansma. When she was a young girl around the age of 12, she had a big old Justin Bieber poster in her room. She would go to sleep facing the poster, so it would be the last thing she saw when she fell asleep and the first thing she saw in the morning. Yo, I think this girl needs to chill a little bit. You can take things too far. I understand being a fan, but you're kinda turning into a psycho. Well, one night this backfired on her because she woke up in sleep paralysis. Instead of seeing her beautiful Bieber, she saw a decomposing man in the poster staring back at her. Once she woke up for real, she quickly took the poster down and it never happened again. You sound like a fake fan. At number 4, we have Chomp Chomp. Swinging in at the number 4 spot, we have a story from one of my favorite Reddit user names, Lebowski Achiever 12. The dude abides. He said he wouldn't get sleep paralysis often, but when he would, he saw this black figure walk into his room and stand over it. It would then bend down so close it was about 6 inches away from his face, and then it moved over to his ribs and it would start biting down on his ribs. He described this as extremely painful, but he couldn't move. Eventually, he would let out a massive scream and the figure would explode into a black cloud. So that's how you kill these things, you just yell at them. I thought the only thing you could destroy with yelling was a marriage where people were bad at communicating. At number 3, we have Take You Away. So what do these sleep paralysis demons want? Well, in the case of Reddit user Jellybean Skittle, fun name for a terrifying story, it seems they wanted to take her away. She suffered from a head injury, and after that her sleep paralysis worsened. She would wake up and be unable to move but feel a presence of something in the room with her. She would then feel as something was trying to drag her off her bed and then towards the mirror in her room. Maybe this creature wanted to take her to some sort of other world through the mirror. At number 2, we have multiple dark beings. In this one we have not 1, not 2, but 4, 5, or even sometimes 6 demons floating around a room. It's a nice little demonic party. Such a great time. And these guys mean business. The person who wrote this story said they would have to scream themselves awake. That would be terrible to sleep beside. These demons would even get super close and whisper nursery rhymes in her ear. At least if it's coming from a demon, you know it's probably an original. I don't think dark floaty figures were raised on Hush Little Baby. And on one occasion, the demons started stabbing her in the stomach. These guys have no chill. After this, she woke up with a ruthless pain in her abdomen. She obviously was terrified, so she went straight to the hospital. It turns out her appendix exploded. This is super creepy. Did the demons cause this to happen to her? Or was it the more logical answer that her appendix was exploding anyways and the hallucinations made it seem like the demons were doing it to her? Really? I don't know. At number 1, we have the Masked Man. Man. Alright, topping off this list, we have some stuff that will make you want to wet your pajamas tonight when you're sleeping alone with all the lights on in your home. This comes from Redditor Hoobshanker, who wrote that one night in an awful case of sleep paralysis, a masked figure with long demonic nails walked into his room carrying a sack. The figure opened up the sack and proceeded to pull out each one of this Redditor's loved ones and then slit their throats one by one with his long demonic nails. He then walked to the edge of his bed and started to stroke his head with the blood-covered claws until he woke up. At number 10, we have Angel. A demon naming itself Angel. Seems like a plan so dumb it might work. That's like going into a bank with a gun and being like, oh, I'm the vault inspector. Nothing to see here. Just came to look at the vault and I'll be on my way. Why do you have that big bag with the dollar sign on it? Oh, no reason. That's just my bag I carry all my toys in to give to the kids at the hospital. Nothing to worry about. This one was thrown on Reddit by Redditor Sword Rallier. He wrote about when he was a kid and he had no friends, which is a very huge bummer to start this story. Well, to fight this tragic case of loseritis, he made up an imaginary friend named Angel. This was fitting because Angel was his middle name. I mean, he could have got a little more creative. You can literally name this thing whatever you want, but I'll let it slide. Well, him and Angel would play and our narrative Redditor would have a great time. That's until he started to make friends. Once he took a step out of Loserville and people started to hang out with him, Angel would get angry. He would start to cause trouble trouble, break things and hurt people. Sort of Rallier would have to make up excuses to explain Angel's behavior. So what do you think about this? Do you think this was a demon following this poor kid around, or do you think he manifested an entity to explain his own bad behavior? Does Angel the demon not exist, and it's all just in this Redditor's head as he attacks the people around him? At number 9 we have Betsy. This story starts off when the writer of this post was only 5 years old. Her mom walked out on her sister, and her dad. It was now her dad's job to watch them both, but because of his wife leaving him, he started to turn to booze. After some time they moved into a new neighborhood where the writer knew no one and quickly made friends with a young girl named Betsy. The two would play almost every day. Betsy would show her around town, and once they grew close she went over to spend the night at Betsy's house. But eventually Betsy moved away, and then the two lost contact. Now years later she's in her early 20s and she was talking to her dad and her sister about Betsy, and they both told her that Betsy wasn't real, that she was an imaginary friend, and when she would play with her she would just be talking to herself. This conversation turned into an argument, and then she asked her dad, well then whose house did I stay at that night? Her dad told her that that's the reason I don't drink anymore. And that's where the story ends. This one sounds a little more like it was made up with a cliffhanger, but it could be true. Demons posing as little girls so they can brainwash you until you feel safe and then try to steal you away. At number 8 we have the Green Man. This one comes way of Redditor X Riot Starter 13X. Great name. He said when he was a kid he had an imaginary friend called the Green Man. He was a very tall guy with a doctor's mask on, and he wore green scrubs. On top of this, he was covered in blood. Some kids choose flying elephants for their imaginary friends, others have some dude who just worked a 12-hour shift in the ER. This imaginary friend would freak his parents out, so they sent him to a psychiatrist who determined that this was their son's way of dealing with his sick grandparents. He had been spending a lot of time in hospitals visiting them, so they chalked this up to him just having a big imagination. But Riot Starter swears this guy was real. He would set a place for him at the table when his family would sit down to eat, and I can't imagine a better hiding place for a demon than a hospital. So many fresh souls to torment. At number 7 we have Boy in the Tree. A father and daughter are walking through the park and they come to a tree. The little girl says, hey dad, look, there's a little boy in the tree. And the dad looks up there, but there's no one in the tree. He asks his little girl what the boy looks like, and she starts to describe him, his clothes, his shoes, his face, his hair. The dad is pretty freaked out, and then the two of them leave. That night they're back at home, and when everyone is asleep, the dad is woken up by a scream coming from his daughter's room. He runs in there and she is in the corner crying. He asks his daughter what's wrong, and she says she told the little boy to come stay with us, and now he's not the boy. He's trying to take me away. Thankfully the dad was quick to act. He had the house blessed, and then there was no sign of the boy anymore. But he never forgot the scream that woke him up that night. Spooky. At number 6 we have Alfred. I grabbed this one off of Reddit and it kinda makes my skin crawl. This Redditor wrote about an old man that would visit them during the day, and his name was Alfred. He would sit by her while she watched TV and her mom was making dinner. Her mom never thought anything of this because she was a very young girl. She was only about 5 at the time. But every now and again Alfred would tell her to stop watching TV and go play in the yard, to go dig in the dirt. She would tell him no because she didn't want to get dirty before dinner. So Alfred started showing up at night and in the morning trying to get the girl to play in the dirt in the backyard. She would ignore him, but after her and her mom moved out, the house got demolished for a new build. When they dug up the ground, they found 4 bodies of people who previously lived in the house. Do you think Alfred was trying to warn her or show her where he wanted her to end up? At number 5 we have The Children. This person wrote about the home she grew up in where there was so much paranormal activity she had to move out. When she was just a young girl, probably around 3 or 4, she would see small children run through the house. Not completely, but just glimpses, them running down hallways, sometimes in the backyard. This would increase more and more until she started to play with them. They would partake in games, and her parents never really thought it was weird because they lived in such a secluded area. So it'd be normal for a young girl to make up some imaginary friends to play with. As she played with them more and more, they asked her to start to do dangerous things, like take knives from the kitchen and hide them in her room, or take a lighter and burn the drapes. She was young, but she knew this behavior was wrong, so she denied them. Then things started to get bad. Loud bangs could be heard throughout the house at night, and on more than one occasion the little girl woke up screaming with scratches on her body. The children would talk to her and tell her that they would hurt her family unless she listened. Throughout these paranormal activities, she told her family that it was these children, but they didn't want to believe her until her mother saw them. Late one night she looked out the kitchen window and saw what had to be a dozen children staring back at her with black pits for eyes. They moved out shortly after that. Can't blame you. At number 4 we have Hook. This next one is going to make you feel so helpless. Dominic wrote this and he said when he was a kid he would visit his grandparents quite often. If he ever went into the basement, he would see a man there who he called Hook because he was always carrying around a long curved hook. The man didn't talk, but he would smile at the boy. He told his grandparents about him, but they just laughed. They thought it was just a child's imagination. Eventually they got a little worried, so they brought a priest in to see if he could do anything. After the priest came in to visit, Hook told Dominic that his grandparents were going to go away because they were trying to get rid of him. The next week, both his grandparents died in their sleep. He never went back to the home because he was too afraid. But the house still stands and there's people living there right now. At number 3, we have Scotty. Be careful who your friends are or you can end up with a situation like this. The person writing the story said that they were in elementary school at the time, and himself and his friend Ryan befriended a new friend, a very quiet, very awkward kid named Andrew. He didn't really talk to people in class, he would often talk to himself, but it seemed like he was engaged, like someone was there. After the writer and Ryan got to know Andrew a little bit more, they decided to have a sleepover at Andrew's house. They had fun during the day, but that night they were all sleeping in Andrew's living room. A writer was woken up by Andrew standing over him and making a high-pitched squeaking noise. This was so loud that it woke up Ryan sleeping next to him. The two of them were frozen with fear as Andrew squeaked. The noise slowly died down until Andrew was silent and then he said, "Scotty wants you to leave." The two boys were so freaked out that they got up to go tell Andrew's mom, but as soon as they moved, Andrew let out a booming scream. It was so loud that the boys started to tremble and Andrew's mom came bolting down the stairs. When she came into the room, she flipped on the lights and that's when they saw scratches all over Andrew's arms. Andrew's mom then held him down and kept repeating, "Scotty isn't real, Scotty isn't real." After Andrew calmed down, she drove both the boys home. Then they didn't talk to him for a long time, and finally when they did, he said, "Don't worry, Scotty's gone now." At number 2, we have Bad Friend. It's always nice to get a scare when you're visiting someone's home. A young man was having dinner at his professor's house with his professor's wife, Susan, and his son, Jacob. During the dinner, Jacob kept looking into the hallway nervously. The writer of this story could tell that Jacob was frightened because of the look on his face. The professor eventually asked his son if he was seeing one of his friends in the hallway. The boy said yes, and the professor said, "A good friend or a bad friend?" And Jacob answered back, "Bad friend." So our visitor asked the young boy, "Why is he a bad friend?" To which the boy said, "Sharp hands." Yeah, that's gonna be the last time I come over for dinner. And for the number 1 spot, we have Maury. A guy came to a dude's house, he found out that he was the father. Whoa, I'm just kidding. Our final story comes from Reddit, and I think it's the freakiest one we've had in the series so far. This takes place in Florida, where a girl was visiting her little cousin and her aunt and uncle. She was spending a week there. The first day, everything went normal until it was time to sleep, because she had to sleep in the attic. Not super creepy because the attic had been refinished and was actually pretty nice. What was weird was how she was woken up. That night her little cousin woke her up standing right next to her bed. It was 3 AM and she was a little shocked, but she stayed up talking to him. He kept talking about a friend named Maury who lived in his room with him. This happened a couple more times, so she decided to ask her aunt and uncle about his imaginary friend. They both had never heard of him and her cousin denied it. That night she was woken up again, but this time her cousin wasn't friendly. He was very angry and he kept asking, "Why did you tell them?" Eventually, he calmed down and went back to bed, but the following night, she was woken up by thumping under her bed. She was terrified, but she went to see what was under there and she saw her cousin curled up in a ball. And he said, "I have to stay here so Maury doesn't hurt you. He wants to hurt you." This obviously scared the crap out of her, so she ran out of the attic and out of the house. Her aunt and uncle came out and found her outside. The creepiest part about this whole story is years later, she brought it up with her aunt and uncle and cousin, and all of them denied it and said that none of it ever happened. At number 10, we have The Faceless Man. This one was written by a young mother whose son would talk about a creepy man he would always see in his grandparents' bedroom. That sounds completely safe and normal. Just a guy that nobody knows about hanging around in a bedroom. It sounds like he has the best intentions. Well, the little boy said even though the man was creepy, he would talk to him and he seemed like a nice guy, but he made the boy feel uncomfortable. Now the mom knew that this couldn't be a real person, but the more and more that the little boy talked about it, out, the more the mother's concern grew. It seemed that every time he went to visit his grandparents, he would have an encounter with this creepy man. Eventually, the mom asked what he looked like, and the little boy said, "Oh, he doesn't have a face." That will make it easy to sleep at night. A faceless demon that is making pals with your toddler. One of the toughest parts about being a parent is controlling the people your kids are exposed to, especially when they come from an alternate demonic universe. At number 9, we have Michael. So one of the best places to make friends is on vacation. You run into some other people who are on vacation, everyone feels loose and wild, you've got no responsibilities, maybe you all have too much to drink and everyone keeps a secret. Great times and never-ending memories. Well, sometimes you meet a bunch of like-minded people ready to make mistakes, and sometimes you're a little girl and you meet an invisible boy on the beach named Michael. The Reddit user I'm Not a Crazy Person wrote a story about a boy that no one could see that she met while she was on a trip with her parents in Florida. They were all on the beach and she spent the day playing with someone named Michael. When it was time to leave, she asked if Michael could come home with them. Her mom thought it was all just in her little girl's head, so she said yes. For years she said she could play with Michael and remember it all so vividly. It was until one day that Michael said he found his family and he was going home. Was this all in the little girl's head, or was there a ghost freeloading off them for years? At number 8, we have the captain. This story comes from a child psychiatrist. Some parents brought in their daughter because she was terrified by a being in a room who she called the captain. She described the captain as a tall man with a beard, and the captain would tell the little girl that when she grew up, her job would be killing. This of course scared the hell out of the little girl because she didn't want to kill anyone, and probably because she thought she would have more options in the future. The little girl would cry and tell the captain she doesn't want to kill, but he would just say, "You'll get used to it." Jeez. At number 7, we have Grateful. A young girl by the name of Ruby was interviewed for a magazine. The article was about imaginary friends. Ruby described her imaginary friend as a 14-year-old girl named Grateful who was pregnant with 2 kids and had yellow eyelashes which let her see in the dark. It seemed like a fun character until the article was published, and then an actress by the name of Natalie Morales contacted the girl's mother through Twitter, giving her details on why this wasn't an imaginary friend but a ghost of a pregnant teen who was murdered. Ooh. At number 6, we have Girl in the Closet. Next we got what is for sure the creepiest one on the list so far. This story comes from a mom whose daughter would talk about a girl named Kelly who lived in her closet. Kelly would do pretty normal stuff. They would play together, Kelly would sometimes hang on a rocking chair, which is a huge ghost red flag, just saying. It was all nice and normal until one day the mom was watching the Amityville Horror, starring Canadian treasure Ryan Reynolds, and her daughter walked into the room. It was during a scene where there was a girl on the screen with black pits for eyes and rotting skin. Her daughter then says that looks like Kelly, which her mom responds with, "Who's Kelly?" And her daughter replies, "Oh, Kelly's the girl who's living in my closet." I bet her mom had a great sleep that night. At number 5, we have a family spirit. We've got another one that we snagged right off of Reddit. Reddit is such a wonderful place. You can get everything you want. You can find illegal streaming websites, buy or sell used underwear, and even find terrifying stories about kids with demonic imaginary friends. This story was written by rcoley32. She said her daughter told her this story about a tall man who would visit her at night. This tall man would do the sign of the cross on her forehead. If it wasn't bad enough that ghosts are coming into your home, now they're touching you, then the creepy factor got turned all the way up to 11 when her and her daughter were going through some family photos. They came across a picture of R. Crowley's late grandfather, and the little girl said that is the man that has been visiting her at night. This is where it gets good. The little girl had never met her great grandfather before, and this was the first time she'd ever seen a picture of him. And when the dude was still alive, he would do the sign of the cross on all his kids' foreheads before they went to sleep. So I guess it's a little better knowing that the ghost who's coming into your house is a family member, but I don't really know. I don't know where everyone's lines are on this. At number 4, we have a family man. This one might be a real imaginary friend or demonic ghost murderer. The story comes from a sister of a little boy named Jordan, and Jordan had an imaginary friend named Roger. Roger was a family man with 9 kids, and Jordan and Roger got on fabulously, until one day when the little boy announced that Roger has gone and killed his whole family. Well, that's a very abrupt ending to a friendship. Well, this might have just all been the kid's head who didn't really understand the weight of death and murdering your 9 children. Or was it the ghost of a crazed man who is left behind from the murder-suicide he committed? Either way, if I have kids, I'm gonna get a tablet into their hands as fast as possible. There is no way in hell there's a ghost out there that is more entertaining entertaining than the whole internet. I don't care if you killed 10 kids. You're not beating Netflix or Russian dashcam videos. No, my kid's not gonna talk to you. Sticking on the tablet. At number 3, we have Jenny. Okay, so this one literally gave me goosebumps. This story is about a single mom and her daughter who have just moved into a new home. Not long after they settled in, the little girl started playing with an imaginary friend named Jenny. The kid's in a new place with just her and her mom, so it seemed pretty normal. One day, the unseen friend named Jenny asked the little girl if she could ask her mom if the cat could play in the basement. Her mom said yes. Why wouldn't she? This seems like a very simple request. Then the cat went missing. They couldn't find the little kitty anywhere. A couple days after the cat went missing, the little girl told her mom that Jenny wanted to play with her in the basement. The mom was really freaked out and of course said no. The next day, the little girl woke up with scratches all over her body. What the hell was going on? They did some research into what was going on in this home, and Jenny was a girl who went missing in the basement a long time ago and no one ever found her. This was spooky as hell, so the two quickly moved out, and I'm assuming they put the house on the market for a low price. At number 2, we have the Bunny Man. Taking care of kids can be so much fun, or you could be taking care of kids that think there's a demon that looks like the Easter Bunny living in their home. This story comes from a girl who says when she was 16 she would babysit 2 twins who were terrified by a thing they called the Bunny Man. On more than one occasion, one of the twins would start screaming, claiming that the Bunny Man was in the room with him. Sometimes the other twin could sense that his brother was in trouble and tell the babysitter to go help. Now this might have just been a prank to scare the crap out of a 16-year-old who's just trying to make a little bit of money, but she said that when they claimed they would see him, they would be terrified. Sometimes they would even be crying. So what do you think this is? Great actors ready to go into their Oscar role? Or is this the real life Donnie Darko? At number 1, we have Mr. Man. Okay, and last on our list is the story of Mr. Man. You may have heard of this one. It was a pretty famous story on Reddit. It comes from a guy who said when he was 5 years old he would be visited by a figure a few times a week. This would always happen when he would go to bed. He would see a tall man dressed in all black. He was bald and had a frowning face. He was probably frowning because he found out that he has to be bald in his entire afterlife. You stay bald when you're dead? That's a huge bummer. This figure would never hurt him, but it would just kind of float above his bed like a really creepy roommate. Then one day it just vanished and never came back. It wasn't until years later, when he was all grown up, that Mr. Man made his return. He saw the shadowy figure looking at him through a doorway, and then it used its ghostly powers to swing the door shut.
Starting off this countdown, we have the 2 men. Mother of 6, Katie Jones, got really creeped out when her young daughter would talk about people that she couldn't see. Since the age of 2, apparently her daughter Alice would talk about the people in her house. One time she started to cry. When asked what was wrong, she said, "There's 2 men in my room staring and shouting at me. I don't like it." So this poor girl was being haunted by 2 older men. Not only that, but there was a girl named Sheila that would apparently sit at the bottom of her bed and just cry for her mom. Well, upon doing research, Katie found that a girl named Sheila was killed in the house. Now, here's where it gets a little more lighthearted. After being haunted for months by these ghosts, Alice said that her grandmother came and told them to go away, and they did. So isn't that kind of sweet? Like her grandmother is still watching over her. In our 9th spot, we have the Midnight Girl. And if you guys are liking this video so far, then make sure to give it a big thumbs up because it really helps us out. According to mother of 3 Tracy, when her daughter was 4 years old, she would tell her about her little friend that wanted to play games with her. The only thing is, she constantly wanted to play and wouldn't leave her daughter alone. She especially wanted to play these games at midnight, which is really creepy. But anyways, Tracy actually resolved this issue by leaving the ghost some toys to play with in the closet upstairs. And it worked! In the morning, the toys would be completely moved around. At least we know that this ghost is on the friendlier side. Because at first I was getting scared about the games that she wanted the girl to play with her, especially at midnight. Moving on to number 8, we have the Green Man. This kid's imaginary friend is probably the creepiest one on this list. Why? Well, according to him, his friend was a tall male doctor that would be dressed in bloody scrubs and would wear a medical mask. If I saw that as a child, it would have severely messed me up. But anyways, he called this guy the Green Man because the green scrubs he was wearing. Now of course, his parents didn't believe him, so he was sent to a psychiatrist to try to talk about his problems. The psychiatrist said that the man was just a figment of his imagination, created to help him cope with the loss of his grandparents and the amount of time that he spent in the hospital with them. But to this day, he knows that the Green Man wasn't made up. He remembers him vividly standing behind him a lot and having his hand constantly on his shoulder, which is super creepy. Coming in at number 7, we have the Easter Bunny. This next individual had the Easter Bunny as their imaginary friend. But this Easter Bunny wouldn't give out chocolate or candy, no. In fact, it was just a man in an Easter Bunny costume, and it would scare him and his twin brother. One day he was sitting on the couch with his cousin when his twins started yelling, "He's in here, he's in here," referring to the creepy ghost bunny man that was haunting them. They were constantly being frightened by this man that would show itself at random times of the day and night. I'm just wondering who this dude is. Like, did he pass away while en route to a kid's Easter party? Or like, do you have wardrobe options in the afterlife and he decided to wear a bunny costume? In our 6th spot, we have the girl down the hall. When this boy was 4 years old, he used to always ask his mom who the girl was down the hall. If my kid ever said anything like that, I'd pack my bags and leave ASAP. And honestly, his mom was very frightened about it, because obviously they couldn't see anyone standing in the hallway. One day, she finally decided to ask more about this girl. Well, her son described the girl as being flat. He then said, "She's Tony's sister." Well, the mom's best friend when she was little was a boy named Tony. Tony's sister got run over by a car, hence why this girl appeared to be flat. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the babysitter. Honestly, there are way too many creepy stories involving kids and babysitters, so I'm just happy I never had to be one. Well, according to this individual, the kids she used to babysit had multiple imaginary friends. All of them were dead. One was an old lady and one had no head, with his insides sticking out of his neck. He described both of them as being covered in blood. Excuse me? How do kids see this stuff and like not get terrified by it? Like, this kid was being haunted by someone with no head that was oozing blood, and he would like talk about it no problem, as if it's just a normal thing for people to be seeing. And at number 4, we have the friend named Robert. This next individual had an imaginary friend named Robert. Robert apparently haunted him for years. Now, it's believed that Robert passed away in a fire. They figured this out because whenever they would turn on their fireplace, he would get mad. The kid would then freak out and demand that they turn it off because Robert doesn't like fire. He would say things like, "Robert says fire burns." I mean, I feel bad for Robert. You can tell he's not trying to be scary, just don't have matches, lighters, or fireplaces in your house and he'll let you live in peace. Moving on to number 3, we have the woman in white. Okay, I lied. This one is probably the creepiest imaginary friend someone has ever had. So when this next individual was 3 or 4 years old, he was haunted by a woman with black hair, pale skin, super red lips, and green eyes. According to him, she would be dressed in all white and would appear on the ceiling of his room or sitting above his curtains. But the scariest place he saw her was on the hood of his car while his family was driving. Imagine that, like the car's driving and just this woman is just sitting there staring at you. No one else can see them. So she would always appear at the most random times in the most random places, and it would terrify him every time he saw her. One time his mother told him to ask her what this woman wanted. Her response was, "I'm just watching." Yeah. No thank you. In our 2nd spot, we have the possession. LaToya Ammons had to deal with something no mom would ever think they would have to deal with. All 3 of her kids got possessed, but for a while, no one believed her until they saw the kids themselves. So it started off with a lot of black flies being around the house that they just started renting. From there, the family would see shadowy figures lurking around. One night, one of her daughters screamed for her mom. When she came in, she saw one of her daughters levitating above her bed. 3 days later, all 3 of her kids became possessed by the imaginary friend that they saw. Their eyes would be bulged and they spoke in deep voices, you know, the typical possessed stuff. At one point, one of the kids literally walked up the wall, literally just like in The Exorcist. Finally, a priest came to the rescue and was able to cast out all the evil inside of them. And in our number 1 spot, we have the dead friends. Back in 2018, a woman named Rebecca Evans was interviewed by a bunch of reporters because she claimed her 3-year-old daughter, Rosalind, could see dead people. One day, Rosalind told her mom that she's got new best friends. She said one of her friends' name was Tilly and the other's name was Alex. She then said that both of them live in the house with them and that they are both dead. Imagine how creeped out her mom must have felt when she heard that. But that's not all. She also said that Alex's mom and granddad both died in the house as well. So you got not one ghost that's haunting your child, you got 4. In an article, Rosalind's mom, Rebecca, said that she never talked to Rosalind about death or the afterlife. So hearing this from her was quite shocking. So eventually, she did do some digging, and the house they live in dates back to the 1500s. In 1861, there was a 10-year-old boy named Alexander Turner that lived there. And in 1891, there was a 20-year-old woman named Matilda Oak that lived there. So there you go, that's her imaginary friends, Alex and Tilly.